Luxury.
Smile on your face. Luxury changes your perspective.
A Birkin bag.
You've heard of it?
Of course. That's a very nice
Where's
word.
Armani? He's on the phone. Too slow.
You're not going to Paris.
If you thought it was only the rich, the 1%, were the ones who bought the Louis Vuitton shoes, Hermes Birkins, and Louis Vuitton belts, you're wrong. Today we'll go over how luxury brands are for broke people and how it's a huge problem. In 2023, the global luxury goods market and industry was worth about $387 billion and expected to climb $464 billion in 2025 and $606 billion in 2030. Clearly luxury is growing, but in an age where economic inequality is rising and many people are struggling to make ends meet because of the high cost of living, it seems strange that luxury brands are flourishing. So who exactly is buying all these expensive brands? $3,000 Louis Vuitton lunch bags, or a crossbody bag in the shape of a croissant for you bread lovers. And if you're not a croissant person, then there's a baguette. Americans with less than $50,000 make up for about 40% of US spending on luxury goods, and those with incomes of $50,000 to $125,000 represented 34%. Therefore, nearly 75% of luxury purchases are made by those in the middle and lower income classes. The concept of luxury goods falls under what we call Veblen goods, coined by Thorstein Veblen, which is not the name of another luxury brand but an economist. But the concept that the more expensive a luxury product is, the greater the perceived social value that's attached to it. But the question is why? Why are so many people spending so much money on items that you could get at a fraction of the cost elsewhere? One of the main reasons lower and middle income individuals are buying luxury goods is the power of aspiration. For decades, luxury brands have marketed themselves as symbols of success, wealth, and social status. And it's pretty natural for people to want to display prosperity or success. Everyone wants to look like they have their lives figured out, even though the reality is that everyone is just making it up as they go. And owning a piece of luxury brand can create a sense of belonging to an exclusive club. And it's not about the product, its function, or its quality. It's about the lifestyle and the image. And luxury brands are in a way a shortcut to success, or at least the facade of it. Instead of waiting to create real wealth, consumers can buy a luxury product immediately at your shopping mall and project the image of affluence. But the problem is that this image is at odds with reality, especially when the image is financed through credit and buy now pay later options. But this is all a very small part of something much bigger. It's not just that people who don't have money are buying things that cost a lot of money. It's that luxury brands are specifically targeting these people. Luxury brands have shifted their marketing strategies to target a broader range of customers, specifically those in middle and lower income brackets, because it's actually more profitable for them to produce and sell millions of bags that cost $4,000 or $5,000 than producing a very small handful of bags that sell for 10 or even hundreds of thousands of dollars for a few multi-millionaires. And even the CFO of LVMH, who owns brands like Dior and Fendi, say that we don't sell most Louis Vuitton products to rich people. It is to people who have money and who want to indulge themselves. And that the advantage of this cohort is that it's much bigger than the super wealthy. Basically saying that luxury brands are very much targeting everyday people because of the larger pool of profitability than a small pool of ultra wealthy. And it's pretty evident if you take a step back that luxury brands are becoming more apparent in your everyday life. Over the past 2 decades, luxury brands have changed from an exclusive club for the top elite to brands that appeal to the masses with mass prestige, or mastige. Not only have they increased the number of brick and mortar stores around the world, but they've been increasing their appeal through pop culture. Even if you don't know about the latest bread bag or Astra boots, you probably do know about Messi, Ronaldo, Zendaya, and Hermione. The issue is that when the American dream is becoming out of reach for so many people, luxury brands are doubling down on marketing and attempting to market an image of success and aspiration. Luxury brands have been able to become the easiest and most direct way to achieve a symbol of status and affluence. For a lot of people, buying a $2,000 shirt is easier than buying a house, which is becoming increasingly impossible. Studies found that millennials and Gen Z accounted for 72% of the global luxury market, and by 2025 they're expected to decrease and account for 70%. And by 2030, Gen Z and Gen Alpha are expected to make up a third of the market. And Gen Zers are splurging on luxury shopping from as young as 15. More people are spending more money on luxury goods at a younger age. The next is that it's not a secret that the fashion industry produces way more than you'll ever need. It's impossible to predict how much demand there is for a certain product. Maybe there are too many shoes, too many bags, or too many wallets, and not enough customers to sell to. Typically, when there's too much inventory, they'll do some kind of a seasonal sale to incentivize people and sell off the remaining inventory. But the problem is that luxury brands don't want to tarnish their brand image. By selling at a discount, they would be devaluing their brand. One truckload of perfectly wearable textiles is dumped in landfills or incinerated every second. Brands are literally burning or shredding perfectly good or unsold products rather than donating, recycling, or selling them at a discounted price. In 2018, Burberry admitted in its annual report that demolishing goods, specifically 28.6 million pounds, or about $37 million worth, was just a part of its strategy to preserve its reputation of exclusivity. And similarly, Reichmont, who owns brands like Cartier, destroyed about $563 million worth of watches. While this might sound strange and wasteful, it's a very small fraction of cost compared to the revenue and image. For luxury brands, destroying unsold stock is one of the most cost-effective ways to avoid devaluing their image. The whole consumer base buys these luxury and expensive goods is to show the world that they're successful. Research found that consumers are 30% more likely to make unplanned luxury purchases when the product is scarce or limited. And scarcity leads to emotional overspending, especially with lower income individuals. And in contrast, the ultra-wealthy, you don't see Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg with baguette bags and Burberry coats, because the world already knows that they're rich, so they don't need to prove anything to anyone. But when you see someone walking down the street with a new Prada handbag, you're probably wondering how they came to afford it. How do they have their life figured out? And there are a few problems here. And before we go on, if you're enjoying this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe. It'll help the channel tremendously. Thank you very much for watching. And of course, the greatest impact is on financial stability. A lot of people who buy luxury brands simply can't afford them. And to be clear, buying luxury items isn't a bad thing. Treating yourself to some Hermes or a nice Rolex or some Burberry sunglasses after working and grinding for years on end, go for it. But it's about balance. It's about splurging and treating yourself without overspending with money that you don't have. But there is a problem when you're over-splurging and sacrificing your financial well-being. For many middle and lower income families, purchasing luxury goods comes at the expense of saving for emergencies, saving for the future, or paying down debt. A study showed that 39% of American households couldn't afford a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling possessions. Additionally, in 2023, the median salary was $48,060, meaning for most people, they would have to save a few months' worth to properly cover the cost of a Gucci belt. And if they don't, it means that the money isn't there, and they're taking money out of your emergency fund, retirement account, and going into debt. Credit card debt has become a huge problem for a lot of people. In 2024, total consumer debt reached an all-time high of $17.8 trillion, with credit card debt nearing $1.2 trillion. But the big issue here is debt, but it's also the average interest rate of 24.72%, which turns that Balenciaga trash bag into tens of thousands of dollars if you're not able to pay it off in time. And there's also the issue of buy now, pay later. It's estimated that 25 to 30% of luxury purchases are made through BNPL. And it's especially popular among younger demographics like millennials and Gen Z. These programs make it seem easy for people to purchase items and convince them that they actually can afford plastic jeans. But the problem is that this creates a domino effect of debt, and all of this very much relies on how we compare ourselves to others. In psychology, the concept is called keeping up with the Joneses, or FOMO, the fear of missing out. It's basically when you use your neighbors as a standard of success. If you saw them with a new car, you get yourself one too. If you saw your neighbors with those Birkins, then you'll want one. And if you saw them with that Louis Vuitton lunch bag, then you get one as well. And a lot of people believe that if they spend more money, they'll receive more quality. And that isn't really true anymore. In the past, brands expertly crafted products that were designed to last for decades. But with industrialization, the expertise of carefully crafting handbags is gone. Instead, luxury brands are relying on cheaper methods of manufacturing, like offshoring to other cheaper countries. The actual raw materials made to manufacture these shiny luxury products are fairly inexpensive. It was found that the markup of luxury handbags like Louis Vuittons can be nearly 3,000%. And the production cost of a $10,000 Birkin bag is about $800. Because not only are people buying materials and labor, but it's also the brand and image. In 2018, Payless, a cheap discount footwear chain, ran an experiment. They made a luxury retail store called Plessy and gave the store a high-end aesthetic. And influencers flocked to the store, saying that they would happily pay hundreds of dollars for these new Plessy shoes, while admiring the design and quality of these shoes. But the kicker here is that these shoes were actually the same shoes that Payless sold for $20, which shows that people are willing to pay more money for brand names all for the sake of luxury, even if the quality isn't there. And if you really must buy a nice handbag or a fancy Rolex, it's okay. And if there's nothing wrong with treating yourself once in a while. But again, it's about balance. In order to avoid debt or dipping into your emergency savings, you need to know how much you can spend. And like for any big purchase, you need to budget. The general rule of thumb is the 50-30-20 method. 50% of take-home pay goes to your essentials, housing, groceries, and utilities. 30% goes to your wants, that extravagant purse, and your video games. And 20% goes to your savings, your emergency fund, or to be invested. And again, if you really must splurge on an expensive bag, find that middle ground between spending everything you have and buying from some shady character in the dark alleyway. So do consider alternatives. So consider secondhand products that have been used at thrift shops, or find replicas and duplicates that look almost exactly the same as the real thing. And sure, they might not have the same glamour of the real deal, but it'll save you a lot of money in the long run. While the cost of living is at an all-time high, and most people are struggling to pay off their credit cards, people are spending their hard-earned money on luxury handbags, wallets, and belts, but at the sacrifice of their financial well-being. But with the right awareness and responsible financial habits, you can balance treating yourself while also flaunting that Louis Vuitton lunch bag. But like happiness, luxury is becoming more expensive and out of reach for a lot of people. So click on the next video to see how the happiest place on earth is pricing out a lot of individuals and families.